February 11, 1990. For 27 years, one of the world's most powerful governments had tried to make a man disappear. They took his freedom, they separated him from his family, they took away the best years of his life, and for years, they reduced his identity to a number, 466/64. But that morning, something was about to happen that nobody could fully predict. The prison gates were about to open. Outside Victor Verster prison, thousands waited. Some sang, some waved banners, others simply stood still, waiting to see a man they had spent decades fighting to free. But there was one question nobody could answer. What would 27 years of imprisonment do to Nelson Mandela? Would he walk out angry? Would he demand revenge? Would he punish the people who had destroyed his life? Or would he do something almost impossible? Would he walk out without hatred? The gates opened. Nelson Mandela stepped into the sunlight. He had entered prison as a revolutionary. He emerged as a leader the entire world would know. But his greatest battle had not been the battle to escape prison. It was the battle over what prison would make of him. Because Mandela had learned something that would eventually change an entire country. You can imprison a man's body, but you cannot decide what he becomes. This is not simply the story of a prisoner who became president. It is the story of a man who had every reason to hate and spent the rest of his life deciding what to do with that hatred. This is the story of Nelson Mandela. Welcome to INSPIREHUB Studios, where history comes alive. Long before the world knew the name Nelson Mandela, he was simply Rolihlahla. He was born on July 18, 1918, in Mvezo, in South Africa's Eastern Cape. He was born into the Tembu royal family. His father, Gadla Henry Mfakanyiswa, served as a counselor to Tembu royalty. His mother, Nosekeni Fanny Mandela, was deeply religious and devoted to her children. But the most important lesson Mandela learned about leadership did not come from a textbook. It came from watching people settle disagreements. At the royal residence, disputes were discussed. People were allowed to speak. Even those without wealth or status could be heard. The chief did not simply shout orders, he listened. Years later, Mandela would carry that lesson with him. But as a child, he had no idea where it would lead. His father died while Rolihlahla was still young. His life changed. He came under the guardianship of Chief Jongintaba Dalindyebo. And at school, his teacher gave him another name, Nelson. Rolihlahla became Nelson Mandela, a name that would eventually be known across the world. But nobody could yet imagine what it would come to mean. Because the boy who was learning how leaders listened would one day have to decide whether an entire nation could learn to listen too. By the early 1940s, Mandela arrived in Johannesburg. He came with little money, few possessions, and ambitions of his own. He worked, he studied, he pursued law. But Johannesburg showed him something his childhood had not: the machinery of racial discrimination. Here, racism was not simply an idea. It determined where people could live, where they could work, where they could travel, which opportunities they could have, and which doors would remain permanently closed. Mandela had wanted to become a lawyer. Now he was beginning to understand something more troubling. What happens when the law itself becomes an instrument of injustice? Then he met a man who would change the direction of his life, Walter Sisulu. Sisulu saw something in Mandela: intelligence, confidence, ambition, and leadership. Through Sisulu, Mandela met other young activists. Among them was another young lawyer who would become one of his closest political partners, Oliver Tambo. Mandela and Tambo shared a dream, a South Africa in which race did not determine a person's rights. Together, they opened a law practice, and ordinary people began coming through their doors. Workers, domestic servants, families, people who had been beaten, arrested, dispossessed, humiliated. Mandela listened to their stories, and something inside him changed. The courtroom was no longer simply a place where he practiced law. It had become a place where he confronted injustice. But then, South Africa changed again. And this time, the law itself would become even more dangerous. In 1948, the National Party came to power. The system that followed would become known around the world by one word: apartheid. Apartness, separation. But apartheid was more than separation. It attempted to organize an entire society around race, where you could live, where you could work, which schools you could attend, which facilities you could use, even where you could sit. Millions of people were told, in effect, "You do not belong here." Mandela could have concentrated on his career. He could have built a comfortable life. But instead, he entered the struggle. In 1944, he helped establish the ANC Youth League alongside other young activists. They believed the older generation had waited long enough. They wanted action, not hatred, not chaos, action. Then came the Defiance Campaign of 1952. Thousands deliberately violated apartheid regulations. They entered places they were forbidden to enter. They challenged unjust laws, and they accepted arrest. Mandela became one of the campaign's principal organizers. The government watched him, followed him, restricted him. Eventually, they banned him from public political activity. They believed that if Mandela could no longer speak to crowds, they could silence him. But they had made one mistake. They were treating a movement as if it were one man. In 1955, representatives from across South Africa gathered at Kliptown. They adopted the Freedom Charter. Its central idea was simple: South Africa should belong to all who lived in it. Black, white, everyone. But the government saw danger. In December 1956, police arrested Mandela and many other activists. They were accused of treason. The trial lasted for years, and yet the government could not destroy the movement. The accused were eventually acquitted, but the struggle was moving toward a darker chapter. Because on March 21st, 1960, everything changed. Sharpeville. Thousands had gathered to protest discriminatory pass laws. The demonstration was met by police gunfire. 69 people were killed. More than 180 were wounded. The images shocked the world. But for Mandela, the tragedy created a terrible question. For years, he had supported peaceful resistance. But what happens when peaceful protesters are answered with bullets? What do you tell ordinary people? Keep marching peacefully? Even when you know some may not come home? The government banned the ANC. Meetings became illegal. Activists were hunted. The legal path toward change was closing. Mandela now faced one of the most difficult decisions of his life. Could he continue asking people to face violence without defending themselves? Or had the government made peaceful resistance impossible? The answer would change his life forever. In 1961, Mandela became one of the founding leaders of Umkhonto we Sizwe, the Spear of the Nation. It marked a profound turning point. Mandela did not present the decision as a celebration of violence. The organization initially focused on sabotage against government infrastructure, electrical stations, government offices, railway lines, communication facilities, not people. Mandela believed destroying property was fundamentally different from destroying human life. He hoped these carefully planned acts would pressure the government to negotiate before South Africa descended into full-scale civil war. History would debate the decision, but one thing is certain: Mandela did not take this path lightly. It was the hardest political decision he had yet made. And then, he disappeared. Not into prison, not yet. Into the shadows. He lived under false names, changed his appearance, moved between safe houses. Sometimes dressed as a chauffeur, other times as a worker. He traveled mostly at night, avoiding roadblocks, avoiding police patrols, avoiding anyone who might recognize him. Journalists gave him a nickname, the Black Pimpernel. Like the fictional hero who constantly escaped capture, Mandela seemed impossible to find. For a while, he was a ghost. By day, hidden. By night, moving. The The government searched for him. Rewards were offered. Informants were recruited. But Mandela remained one step ahead. Then, he left South Africa secretly. He traveled to several newly independent African nations. He sought support, training, funding, international solidarity. He met leaders who governed free African countries. He saw nations building their own futures, and his message remained the same. South Africa could not remain imprisoned while the rest of Africa embraced freedom. He even traveled to London, meeting journalists, supporters, and anti-apartheid campaigners. The world was beginning to notice. Nelson Mandela was no longer simply a South African leader. He was becoming an international symbol of resistance. But every journey must eventually end. On August 5, 1962, Mandela was driving near Howick in KwaZulu-Natal. He believed he had successfully returned home unnoticed. He was wrong. Without warning, police vehicles surrounded the car. Armed officers stepped forward. Mandela remained calm. There was no attempt to escape, no struggle, no violence. After 17 months underground, South Africa's most wanted man had finally been captured. He was 44 years old, and the life he had known as a free man was over. He was charged with leaving the country illegally and encouraging workers to strike. The court sentenced him to 5 years imprisonment. Many believed his political career was finished. The government believed it had finally silenced him, but they had made a mistake. Because while Mandela sat behind prison walls, investigators were making another discovery. A discovery that would lead to one of the most famous political trials in modern history. And this time, the sentence could be far worse. Death. In July 1963, police raided Liliesleaf Farm. Inside, they found documents connecting senior members of the underground resistance. Maps, letters, plans, documents. The government now believed it had enough evidence to destroy the leadership of the struggle. Mandela and his colleagues were brought before the court. The charges were serious: sabotage, conspiracy, planning armed resistance. And the prosecution wanted the harshest punishment available: death. Imagine that courtroom, a government determined to crush you, a judge who could decide whether you live or die, and outside, a country waiting. Mandela understood something. If he begged for mercy, the courtroom would become about his personal survival. If he remained silent, the government would tell the story for him. So he chose another path. He would use the courtroom to explain why he had fought, not to escape punishment, but to defend the cause he believed in. On April 20th, 1964, Nelson Mandela rose to address the court. For nearly 4 hours, he spoke calmly, clearly, fearlessly. He admitted helping to establish Umkhonto we Sizwe. He explained why peaceful resistance had failed. He rejected the accusation that he hated white South Africans. His opposition was not to one race, it was to domination, black or white. Then, he spoke of the society he wanted to build. A democratic and free society where people of different races could live together with equal opportunities. And then came the words that would echo through history. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve, but if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. No shouting, no begging, just conviction. In that moment, the accused prisoner became something larger, a symbol, not only for South Africa, but for millions around the world. And then the waiting began. The judge could sentence him to death. Mandela knew it. He prepared himself for the possibility that he might never leave the courtroom alive. June 12th, 1964. The courtroom overflowed. The charges had been proven: sabotage, conspiracy, planning armed resistance. Everyone waited for the words, "death by hanging," but they never came. The judge paused, then delivered the sentence: life imprisonment. There were no cheers, no celebration, because Mandela understood what those words meant. His freedom was gone. His future was uncertain. and the next place he was going was Robben Island. From a distance, Robben Island could almost look peaceful, but behind its walls, men were being stripped of freedom. When Mandela arrived in 1964, he became prisoner 466/64, the 466th prisoner admitted that year. A number. That was what the prison system wanted him to become. Not Mandela, not a leader, just an inmate. A body behind a door, a name reduced to numbers. His cell was tiny, a sleeping mat, a blanket, a bucket, a small window, no comfort, no privacy. Every morning the steel door opened, every evening it closed. Then came the quarry. Day after day, prisoners worked beneath the African sun. The limestone was blinding, the labor was exhausting. Even prison rations reflected the racial hierarchy of apartheid. But the physical punishment was only part of the prison. The deeper punishment was separation. Letters were censored. Words disappeared beneath black ink. Family news was filtered. Visits were short. Children grew older while Mandela remained behind a wall. Birthdays passed. Milestones came and went. He missed moments no father could ever recover. And that was the real price of those 27 years. He could fight a government from prison. He could fight a political system, but he could not fight time. This is where Mandela's story could have ended differently, because prison had given him every reason to become bitter, every reason to hate, every reason to believe that the people who had destroyed his life deserved to suffer. But something unexpected happened. Mandela began transforming the prison itself. The prisoners began calling Robben Island the university. Prisoners taught one another history, politics, mathematics, law, philosophy. Ideas traveled from cell to cell. Knowledge became resistance. The government had built a prison to break them. Mandela and the prisoners turned it into a school. The state controlled the walls, but it could not control what happened inside the minds of the men behind them. And Mandela emerged as a leader, not because he held a title, but because people trusted him. When disagreements erupted, he listened. When tempers rose, he remained calm. Even with prison guards who insulted him, he tried to maintain his dignity. Not because he accepted what they were doing, but because he refused to surrender control of himself. And that distinction matters. Mandela was not simply learning how to resist apartheid. He was learning how to resist becoming shaped by it. Outside prison, Winnie Mandela faced surveillance, detention, and harassment. The struggle continued. And slowly, the world began demanding Mandela's release. Students marched, churches prayed, musicians sang his name, governments imposed pressure. The longer Mandela remained imprisoned, the more famous he became. The government had tried to bury him, but instead, the prison walls amplified his voice. Then, after more than 2 decades behind bars, the government made him an offer. Imagine it. Someone walks into the room and says, "You can go home, you can see your family, you can walk outside, you can be free. But there is a condition. Renounce the armed struggle." For someone who had spent years in prison, the offer must have been tempting. But Mandela understood what it meant. If he accepted personal freedom while millions remained oppressed, what exactly had been won? He refused. Through his daughter Zinzi, his response was made public. His message was clear. He could not bargain away the rights of his people. He would not accept freedom on those terms. And suddenly, the prisoner became even more powerful. The world heard his refusal. The campaign intensified. But something else was happening. Behind closed doors, government officials were beginning to talk to Mandela. Quietly, secretly. No cameras, no reporters. Both sides understood the same terrifying reality. South Africa was dangerously close to civil war. The question was no longer simply, how do we end apartheid? It was, how do we end it without destroying the country? Mandela listened carefully. He remained firm. Peace could never be built on injustice. If South Africa was going to have a future, that future had to belong to all its people. By the late 1980s, Mandela had been transferred from Robben Island to Pollsmoor Prison and later to Victor Verster Prison. His conditions improved, but he was still a prisoner. 27 years had passed. The young man who had been arrested at 44 was now an old man. The country he had left behind had changed, the world had changed, and Mandela had changed too. But nobody yet knew exactly what kind of man would emerge when the gates finally opened. Would he seek revenge? Would his followers demand revenge? Would the country descend into violence? Or could a nation that had been divided for generations find another way? Then came the announcement. February 11th, 1990. Nelson Mandela would be released. The prison gates opened, and there he was, walking beside Winnie Mandela, raising his fist, walking toward freedom. Millions watched. The images traveled across continents. People celebrated in cities they had never visited. They cheered for a man they had never met. But the extraordinary thing was not simply that Mandela was free. It was what he did with that freedom. Many expected anger. Many expected revenge. Instead, they heard discipline, negotiation, democracy, reconciliation, a future that belonged to everyone. 27 years had been taken from him, and yet he did not emerge calling for revenge. He called for a democratic future. That was the first glimpse of the man Mandela had become. But freedom was only the beginning. South Africa was still divided. Old wounds remained open. Violence was still possible. Mandela had won his freedom. Now he faced a much harder question. Could he help an entire nation become free? On April 27, 1994, South Africa woke to a day generations had waited to see. For the first time, citizens of all races could participate in a national democratic election. People began lining up before sunrise. Some traveled for hours. Others waited patiently through the night. The queues stretched for miles. Young and old, black and white, rich and poor. People who had once been separated by law now stood together as citizens. Some cried as they held their ballot papers, because this was not simply an election. For millions, it was the first time the country had officially told them, "You belong here." When the votes were counted, Nelson Mandela had won. The prisoner had become the first black president of South Africa. On May 10, 1994, he stood at the Union Buildings in Pretoria and took the oath of office. Former prisoners stood beside former jailers. The impossible had become real. But Mandela understood something the celebration could easily hide. Winning political power was not the same as healing a nation. And if he used that power to settle old scores, South Africa could fall apart. Mandela had every reason to seek revenge. 27 years, lost family moments, lost friends, humiliation, imprisonment, a system that had treated millions as less than human. If anyone had earned the right to hate, surely it was Mandela. But now, he had to decide what to do with that hatred. It is easy to unite people against a common enemy. It is much harder to unite people after the enemy is gone. Mandela understood that. A country cannot build a future by endlessly reopening the cycle of revenge. So South Africa confronted its past. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission was established under Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Victims told their stories. Families spoke about people who had disappeared. People described torture, imprisonment, violence, loss. The pain did not disappear. And reconciliation did not mean pretending that nothing had happened. Quite the opposite. The truth had to be spoken. The wounds had to be acknowledged. Only then could healing begin. This was perhaps Mandela's most difficult form of leadership, because forgiveness is easy to discuss until the person who hurt you is standing in front of you. Mandela had spent 27 years behind bars. Now he had to help a country escape a prison built from hatred. And his next move would show the world just how seriously he understood the power of symbols.
In 1995, South Africa hosted the Rugby World Cup. To many black South Africans, the Springboks had long been associated with the old apartheid order. Some wanted the symbol abandoned. Mandela chose something different. On the day of the final, he walked onto the field wearing the green Springbok jersey. For a moment, the stadium was silent. Then came the applause. Mandela understood something politicians sometimes forget. Symbols matter. He was not endorsing apartheid. He was taking something that had once represented division and giving it a new meaning. A meaning that belonged to everyone. South Africa defeated New Zealand. The country celebrated. For one extraordinary moment, millions were not thinking about the past. They were celebrating together. It was more than sport. It was a message. This country belongs to all of us now. Mandela had understood that reconciliation could not live only in speeches. Sometimes people needed to see it. Mandela had reached the highest political office in the country, but he did something many powerful leaders struggle to do. He left. After one presidential term, he chose not to seek re-election. Because for Mandela, leadership was never supposed to be about holding power forever. Democracy had to be stronger than one man. And perhaps that was another lesson of his life. A leader is not defined only by how he gains power. Sometimes, a leader is defined by knowing when to let it go. Even after leaving office, his service continued. Education, children, peace, humanitarian causes, the fight against HIV/AIDS. His political career had ended, his service had not. As Mandela grew older, he gradually stepped away from public life. The man who had once been surrounded by crowds now spent more time with his family. But the world continued coming to him. Presidents, kings, students, religious leaders, children. People wanted to meet the man who had survived prison and helped transform a country. But Mandela resisted the idea that he was a perfect man. He had made mistakes, he had struggled, he had changed his mind, he had learned. And perhaps that is what makes his story so compelling. He was not born as the man history remembers. He became that man through choices. Some admirable, some controversial, some painful. But again and again, he was forced to decide what his circumstances would make of him. And then, December 5th, 2013, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela died at the age of 95. The news traveled around the world. Flags were lowered, tributes poured in. Former prisoners remembered him, world leaders spoke about him. Ordinary people mourned him. And leaders who had once stood on opposite sides of history gathered to honor his life. But when the mourning ended, one question remained. Why did this man matter so much? Was it because he spent 27 years in prison? No. Other people have suffered imprisonment. Was it because he became president? No. Other people have held political power. Was it because he helped defeat apartheid? That was part of it. But perhaps the deepest reason was something else. It was what happened when the prison gates finally opened. Think about that moment again. February 11th, 1990. A man walks out of prison after 27 years. He has every reason to hate, every reason to seek revenge, every reason to make his enemies suffer. But he walks forward, and with him, he carries something more powerful than revenge, a vision, a belief that enemies can become partners, that justice does not have to become vengeance, that a country can confront its past without being permanently imprisoned by it. Mandela understood something profound. Hatred can keep a person imprisoned long after the prison doors have opened. And so he made a choice. Not to forget, not to pretend, not to excuse injustice, but to refuse to allow bitterness to determine the future. That choice did not erase South Africa's wounds. It did not make every problem disappear. And Mandela was not a flawless man, but he helped prove something extraordinary. A nation can come through decades of hatred and still choose a different future. He entered prison as a political prisoner. He emerged as a symbol. He became president. But perhaps his greatest victory was not winning an election. It was refusing to let his suffering decide who he would become. History remembers kings. It remembers generals. It remembers presidents. But sometimes, history gives us someone who becomes more than a political figure. Someone whose life becomes a question for everyone else. What will your suffering make of you?
Will it make you bitter? Will it make you cruel? Will it make you seek revenge? Or will you somehow find the strength to become something greater? Nelson Mandela spent 27 years behind bars. But when the gates opened, he refused to walk out carrying the prison with him. And perhaps that was his greatest freedom. Nelson Mandela, the prisoner, the revolutionary, the president, the peacemaker, the man who helped change South Africa, and the man who showed the world that sometimes the greatest victory is not defeating your enemy, it is refusing to become like him. Mandela's story reminds us that freedom is not only the moment the prison doors open. Sometimes, true freedom is refusing to let hatred follow you through them. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe to INSPIREHUB Studios. Because history is not only about what happened, it is about what those moments can still teach us. This is INSPIREHUB Studios. Keep learning, keep questioning, keep inspiring. Thanks for watching.